Hello everybody. Today I'm going to simply work on how to factor out a GCF. So we're kind of going in reverse of what we've been doing. We've been multiplying. Now we're going in reverse. We're going to factor out a GCF, a greatest common factor, if you don't remember those three letters. So it's basically like we're dividing. We look for a common factor. We divide it out of everything. We're going to start by remembering how to multiply. So the first example I have for you is simply 3 times 4x plus 7. And if you remember, you're just going to distribute. 3 times 4x is 12x. 3 times 7 is 21. So when you multiply, you get 12x plus 21. Now, what I want you to start looking at is when we multiply is notice that the results, you should, hopefully, with a little number sense, you look at 12 and 21, you realize what do both of those numbers have in common? They both have a 3. So we'll use that when we start going backwards in a minute. The second example, we have 2x to the fourth times 2x cubed minus 8x squared plus 9. So again, we just want to distribute. 2x times 2x cubed would be 4x to the 7th. 2x times negative 8x squared would be negative 16x to the 6th. And 2x to the 4th times 9 would be 18x to the 4th. And again, perhaps you see that those all have something in common, because that's what we'll use for the next part when we actually start to factor or go backwards. Okay, so now you see we're going to go in reverse. We're going to factor. We have 4x plus 12. So we will look at 4x and 12. Remember, you look at each factor or each term separately. What do 4x and 12 have in common? Hopefully you realize they both have a 4 that can be taken out of them. Okay, because 4 goes into 4 and into 12. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and factor out the 4x and the 4 from the 4x and the 12. So we're going to divide it out of each one. 4x divided by 4 is x. 12 divided by 4 is positive 3. Now that's on our answer. We also have to remember that we took a 4 out. See, the goal here is whenever we do factor, we get something that is equal to what we started with. They can't be totally different numbers. Okay, it's like when we factor 10, we say the factors of 10 are 5 times 2, because 5 times 2 is 10. We don't say 10 is the factors of 10 are just 5, because that doesn't work. So we'll talk about that a little more in a minute, but your result has to match what you start with. Okay, so let's look at the second example. We have 8x to the third minus 12x squared. So if you want to do the same thing and look at this, let's start with the 8 and the 12. They both have in common, again, 4. Okay? If we look at the x cubed and the x squared, now remember, x cubed means this, x squared means 2 of them. What do they have in common? Well, they each have an x in common. They each have another x in common, but they do not have that third x in common. So that means the coefficients have 4 in common. The variables have 2 x's in common. So they have a 4x squared in common. So what we'll do with that is we will put that on the outside. Then we'll go back up here and we'll divide each part by 4x squared. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. X cubed divided by x squared is x. On the right side, 12 divided by 4 is 3. X squared divided by x squared is 1. So we get 4x squared times 2x minus 3. That is the factored form, because 4x squared times 2x minus 3, if we distributed that, would give us 8x cubed minus 12x squared. Okay, so when we factor, we go in reverse. We look for a common factor, we divide it out. Okay, let's ramp it up here a little bit. You see the polynomials get a little bit bigger. So with all these numbers, I'm going to kind of do it a separate way. Let's write each one of these over here. Let's write 8x cubed. Let's write negative 10x squared. Let's write 4x. And let's write negative 2. 8x cubed is really 8xxx. Negative 10 is negative 10xx. 4x is 4 and x, and then negative 2. Now, I didn't write out the numbers a whole lot because most people can see between 8, 10, 4, and 2, what they have in common is a 2. Now you say, hey, you got some negatives there? We don't take a negative out. We always take out a positive. We don't worry about the negative. Okay? But then if we look at the x's, these three have an x in common, but this one does not. Okay, so you can't find anything that all terms have in common. So the GCF is just 2. So that means we'll divide a 2 out of everything. And that's okay. GCF doesn't have to be a huge number. Sometimes it is very big. Sometimes it's not big at all. So in this case, 8x cubed divided by 2 is 4x cubed. Negative 10x squared divided by 2 is negative 5x squared. 4x divided by 2 is 2x. And negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So the factored form of this would be 2 times 4x to the third minus 5x squared plus 2x minus 1. All right, let's try this next one. Again, let's go off to the side. 3xxy, 9xy, and then negative 6xy. Now, we start by looking at the numbers, 3, 9, and 6, and hopefully you see that they all have in common that a 3 goes into them. Now we'll look at the variables. They each have an x. Only this one has a second x, so we can't go any further there. They each have a y, and that looks like everything. So the GCF is going to be 3xy. So that's what we'll divide out, 3xy. So we have 3 cancels, leaving just an x, and the y's cancel. For the second one, we have 9 divided by 3 is 3. The x's cancel. There's 4 y's and 1, so that's only 1, or that's 3 y's. And for the last, 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. The x's and the y's cancel. So it's just 3xy times x plus 3y cubed minus 2. And again, we can do a quick check if we need to. The 3x times x is going to be 3x squared, and then the y, the 3x times 3 is going to give us 9x, and then y to the fourth, and then minus 6xy. Yeah, so that's what we started with, so that's a quick check. All I'm doing there is checking, so don't get excited and think that you have to do extra work. We're just checking our work. Okay, for our last grouping here, we'll take a look at each one of these. And again, let's go off to the side. Let's just write, this is 5xxxx, y. The second one is negative 25xxx, y. The last one is 20xxx. So hopefully right off the bat you realize there are no y's, so our GCF will not have a y in it. We'll start with the numbers 5, 25, and 20. You can take a 5 out of each one of those. And then, there you go. And then we look at our x's. They each have the first x. They each have the second x. They each have a third x. They don't have a fourth x, so it's just 5x cubed. But no y, so it's just 5x cubed. So that's what we can divide out. So the first one, the 5's cancel. There's a y squared, and all the x's but 1 cancel, so it's x y squared. And again, we can double check, 5x cubed times xy squared would be 5x to the fourth y squared, so we're good. Okay, the second one, negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. The 3x's on top, 3 on the bottom cancel, leaving just the y. And then for the last one, 20 divided by 5 is 4. There's 3x on top, 3 on the bottom, so it just stays like that. And again, we can multiply to check our work. The last one, let's do one more. Again, let's go off over here. All I'm doing is expanding it all. Remember I told you a long time ago, you expand, you don't make mistakes. That's always going to be true. Okay, so let's start with the 7, the 8, and the 9. They've got nothing in common. So if you want to, you can put a 1 there because they always have 1 in common. If we look at the x's, these both have an x, but there is no third x. Look at the y's, these both have a y, but there's no third y. So the only thing they have in common at all, period, is the 1. That sometimes happens. This is a prime polynomial, meaning the only factor is 1. So you would factor it by saying 1 times 7x squared plus 8x to the fourth y squared minus 9y cubed. That's something you're very easily able to do. Don't worry about if it happens. Just do a quick double check, make sure there's nothing you have in common. As you go through it, start seeing, some of you will, but start seeing if you see any shortcuts for determining what you can pull out. I'm not going to tell you in the video, but if you want to discuss it with me later on, feel free to. But there is a shortcut. You still have to know your factors. You still have to divide everything out, but there's a way to determine a little faster sometimes. Make sure you do the assignment. If you have any questions, look for me in my office hours, usually from 9 to 11 and 1 to 3 each day. Feel free to come in and ask questions. Thank you.